everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the MindsetGo radio show, ICommunicate. It's gloomy out there today. I just got to tell you, Ted, it's pretty gloomy. Yeah.
It's so gloomy that even the ducks are hiding.
This is why I'm here to, for the next hour, help people with their mindset so they can kind of clean up their mindset a little bit.
Well, I need help because I'm like a duck. I'm quackers today.
Oh, boy. Listen, I'm not going to let you stay on the show if you keep making jokes like that.
I'm sorry. I'm going to go back over here.
So anyway, good to be back with everybody today, and I have a special guest on the show today. Her name is Hannah Reuben. Hannah, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hannah is a recent college graduate, correct?
Yep.
And Hannah, where did you go to school?
I went to Roger Williams University in Rhode Island.
Good business school.
Yep.
And so Hannah, what was your major?
It was marketing with a minor in web development.
Okay, so Hannah is here to...
Sorry.
Yeah. So Hannah is someone who's going to give us a different perspective on some of the topics we're going to discuss today. And Ted, you ready for our first topic today?
All right. Here, wait a minute. Let me get a pencil.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, here we go. We're going to talk about ghosting.
Oh.
Do you know what ghosting is? I mean, this is a term I've just learned about a year ago.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not here to respond to that.
So here's the deal with ghosting. I've been thinking a lot about this because, you know, we all grow up. Hannah, if you think about it, one of the major core values we learned growing up is do unto others as you'd have done to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of all the different scenarios, frankly, I've personally been ghosted over the course of my life, and I think of how often it goes on. And I think of, we hear it a lot with employers who don't respond to job applicants. We hear it with salespeople who get ghosted by prospects. We hear it through online dating. Interactions or conversations start and they don't finish. And it's really a problem. And one of the things that's come up recently that's made this on top of mind for me is, and Hannah, I don't know if you knew this, but karma, I don't know, are you a believer in karma?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, I am as well. And what's interesting is there's a little bit of karma coming back in the job seekers world because now with the unemployment rate as low as it is, we're hearing a lot of companies saying that candidates are ghosting them.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to start out by asking you, Hannah, why do you think, what's the root cause of why people ghost? Like, what's your opinion of why people do that?
I think it's lack of interest. I know that if you have people applying places and then they're not interested anymore, sometimes people just don't want to reply and say, hey, never mind, I'm not interested. And I feel like same goes the other way. Companies who aren't interested anymore, they don't really feel like they need to reach out either. And I feel like that's a...
But Hannah, think about this for a second. I don't disagree with you, but think about this. Here's a situation where I'm walking into the supermarket. In front of the supermarket, there's Girl Scouts selling Girl Scout cookies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They stop me and they say, hey, are you interested in buying Girl Scout cookies? It would be like me just totally ignoring them, walking by with no response.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is what ghosting is. So why is it so hard, do you think, for people? I definitely agree it's a lack of interest, but why is it so hard for people to extend the common courtesy to give you an answer? And by the way, for our listeners out there today, I will not let anybody, wow, that was a big boom. I will not let anybody use the excuse of time because it takes literally 2 seconds. And if you're and let me even take that a step further. If you're an HR or you're receiving hundreds of job applications, or you're a company that's getting salespeople calling every day, I get it. I get it. If you were to respond to every single person, but honestly, it really doesn't take a lot of time to say 2 words, not interested. So what is it, Hannah? Why do people have so much trouble doing that?
I was going to say time, but I feel like also some people can think they're better than other people as well, and they don't really feel, they don't want to put in the effort. I was going to say time where they're going about their day and they don't want to stop and take the time to do that, but I can't really think of what else it would be, honestly.
Ted, what do you think?
Well, acknowledgement is a verb which describes accepting or about the existence of a truth. Now, if I say, gee, those are nice cookies, but I can't buy them, my wife won't let me have any, it would be nice for a Girl Scout to say, That's too bad. Thanks for stopping by. Now, that's just acknowledging the fact that I'm a big truth right in front of her. That's the kind of respect that was normal 50 years ago. If somebody addressed you directly, you would acknowledge the fact that they were in front of you. You might not give them the acknowledgement in the form they wanted, but you acknowledge that they were there. You didn't ignore them. That is rude. And as my mom always says, there's never an excuse to be rude.
Well, I'll tell you, I actually think, though, Hannah's onto something with the someone thinking they're better because, you know, Hannah, I think about hierarchy, right? And so with a prospect not responding to a salesperson, they're in the position of leverage, right? The salesperson needs them. The job seeker needs the company, right? So I do think there is, and I think what happens in many cases is when people are put in a position of leverage, you know, that they take advantage, whether it's conscious or subconscious, and they take advantage of that position of leverage, and it's almost like an entitlement. They feel entitled because, hey, I am getting dozens of job applicants a day, and I can't respond to so many, so on and so forth. And frankly, and I don't know if you agree with me on this, Hannah, but when I think of ghosting, I think part of the issue with ghosting is if you've actually started a conversation. So if you're to apply to a job with me and I don't respond to you at all, I don't necessarily see that as ghosting. Mm-hmm. I see ghosting as I've responded, you've responded, and then and the ball's in my court to do something next and I don't do it. And so my point is I do think hierarchy plays a factor, but you know what I think the biggest factor is, Hannah, and I'm convinced of this, is, and this is something I help companies with a lot, is they just don't have it in their heart to deliver bad news. Mm-hmm. It is so painful for human beings to deliver bad news to others that, and let's face it, the longer the interaction goes on between two people, the more guilty the person feels mm-hmm. for breaking something off or giving them bad news. And I think it is so hard, and I think people hide behind that email. People hide behind that computer. And if they don't respond at all and they ghost you, or they'll send you a really insensitive quick email because they didn't have to tell you face to face, or they didn't have to hear your voice, or you hear their voice. So, you know, Hannah, for you, have you been in a situation in your life where you've had to give bad news to someone, and we're all human, and you've ducked it? You know, you've either ghosted them or you tried to take an easy way out, or can you remember a situation where you've been in like that?
I mean, I definitely have been in that situation, but I don't know what I can think of right now. I mean, I've never been, like, obviously a boss or anything, so I've never had that. But I feel that if I was in that position, it would be hard, especially as you said, the longer the interaction, I would feel so bad. I'm that type of person. So I feel like if I was in that situation, yes, I would try to, I would probably call them rather than email them or bring them in face to face. I feel like call's the best way to do that type of thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Ted, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, about 25 years ago, when word processing became a regular thing in the workplace, we came up with template letters that you'd be able to click and paste the person's address in, and then out the letter would go, and it gets stamped in it. And it was a form letter. Now, that's become even more prevalent now that we have the cloud or the internet supported by the cloud. You can get 1,800 letters in for one job, and quite honestly, it's impossible for any person to respond individually to all of those. And they may all be qualified, and there may be a system by which they winnow down or get rid of the chaff and just bring in the best of the best, and then they respond to those. So I don't know if that's ghosting, because it's a business situation. In sales, I never leave messages. In sales, I would never.
I don't either. I don't either.
Call me back.
No, I don't. I don't either.
Then they think you're a novitiate or somebody who's not hip.
But wait a second. Let's simplify this a little bit, because like I said, there's three buckets, right? There's prospect to salesperson, there's job applicant to employer, and there's, online dating. So let's take them separately. In an online dating situation, you're in a situation where you may start a conversation, and the whole thing is so artificial anyway because it starts through like forced messages. But
purely subjective.
But you send a couple of messages, they respond, and then you send another message and they don't respond. That's not a time thing. Now it's a courtesy and a respect thing, right? So what?
Well, it depends on the response, my friend. What
do you mean?
Well, sometimes language can be misinterpreted. The printed word on a visual screen where you take a look at it and you go, "Ooh, what did they mean by that?"
So,
has that happened to you?
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like emojis play a big role in
time.
that.
Big time.
If someone says, "Hey, you want to go on a date with a weird emoji?" You're like, "Oh, I don't know. What kind of date?"
Oh, can you send me that emoji? I want to use it.
Well, but I agree with you. But here's the thing: if you on the online dating world, and we're going to talk more about this after this first break, but think about this for a second. Can this sentence be misinterpreted? It was nice talking with you. I just don't think we're a good fit, but I wish you the best of luck. Is there anything wrong with that?
In a way, I feel like you can look at it as in sarcasm. And obviously through texting and online, you don't know the type of tone they're talking in.
Okay, so when we come back from the break, I'm glad Hannah said what she did. And by the way, that's why I like having her on the show, a different perspective. So this is the MindsetGo radio show. I'm your host, Mark Altman, here with Hannah Reuben. We'll be back after the break. All right, welcome back. And, I just want to continue on with what Hannah had said before the break. And I posed the question of, and Hannah, we at MindsetGo, we do a lot of work around conversational intelligence, how to handle certain situations. So there was posed that I'm going to email a woman, or a woman's going to email me and say, hey, it was nice getting to know you. I just don't think it's a great fit, but wish you the best. And you said, well, I wouldn't necessarily say that's okay. So if you could expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so are you talking within business or online
No, this
dating?
is just online dating.
Okay.
Yep.
I think that it depends on the conversation. I feel like how long the conversation is. But if you're saying we're not a good fit, yeah, that might be good. But wish you the best of luck. I feel like sometimes you can take that in sarcasm in a way.
So I guess when I hear you say that, what goes through my mind is this. If you are one of those people, and you think about the millions of people who do online dating all over the country, if you had a choice between getting blown off, ghosted, not responded to at all, or a response similar to the one I said that could be misconstrued, I mean, I'm not dismissing what Hannah said, could be misconstrued, someone could think it was cheesy or sarcastic, would you choose no response over something that could possibly be misinterpreted?
I would choose, I guess, having something said.
Yeah, that's my point.
Because then if you really like them or something, you would keep messaging them and saying, "Why aren't you answering me?" And then you'd get that type of look on you.
So here for Ted and Hannah and our listeners, here's something I don't think we think about with ghosting. And I'm not trying to get too deep on this, but I think it's important. If you're ghosted, and I'm not now even separating whether it's, job seeking, sales, online dating, whatever, but just think of the basic concept of ghosting. If you get no response, a lot of people, it impacts their confidence. So if you're getting ignored or blown off, your inner voice might say in that moment, well, I guess I'm not good enough, or I guess they don't care, or I guess I'm not worth it. Right? And so if your inner voice starts to play that message when you're ghosted, I think that if you get a message back, when you get a message back, even if it isn't the message you wanted, at least you got some clarity. At least you got something that you can hold on to and say, okay, they weren't interested. And let me take this one step further. In an online dating world, I don't care whether you're male or female, if you get ghosted, especially after a little bit of interaction, here's what could possibly go through someone's mind, especially if there's been a face-to-face interaction. I guess I'm kind of ugly. I guess I don't have much of a personality. I guess I'm too old, I guess whatever. But if you don't get that clarity, all the insecurities you have when you're looking for a job, when you're looking for a date, when you're trying to sell, they all come to the forefront. And so that's why the ghosting, for those of you out there who've ghosted, think about that. Think about how you're impacting another person's confidence. Not that you have to be responsible for everybody in the world. That's not what I'm saying.
That explains a lot of those photoshopped images that people put up about themselves.
Exactly.
That have either are nothing like their true appearance or are affected in such a way that you're not even looking at the same person.
So Hannah, when I share that with you about how it could affect the lack of clarity, is that any thoughts on that? Is that a different perspective for you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like that is definitely true. If you know you're looking for a partner or whatever, and they ghost you do think of all those things, and you think, oh, am I not good enough? Am I not pretty enough? Things like that. And then when it comes with professionally, it's, oh, they didn't like me. I wasn't good enough.
Right.
You know, you start thinking I actually wasn't. They didn't want me. They didn't even have the time, or, you know, they didn't even think to reply to me at all.
Exactly.
Hannah, let me encourage you to consider something. And you can color me an old man or whatever you want, but when it's a social network or a dating site and you're communicating in that way, that's entirely different than a business relationship. When you make an approach to a prospect and they don't respond, it's not on them, it's on you. You need to communicate with them in their language if you want their business. If you want to acquire an opportunity at a company, you need to speak their language. They're not going to come to you and speak to you like Hannah wants to be spoke to.
Right.
You know, but a social network, I would agree with you guys. You don't ghost people on a social network. That's just bad form.
However,
it's rude.
However, I agree with what you said, but I don't think on the professional side, Ted, I don't think we're questioning that. I think what it comes down to on the professional side is, and it's a double whammy, okay, because here's how it plays out. Let's do sales. Let's company to prospect now. So it's my company, so I'm selling. I'm in the situation a lot. And for those of you who aren't familiar with typical metrics in sales, you know, if you're calling on 10 prospects and you close, 2 or 3 of those deals, you're considered a star. So basically you're failing 70% of the time, sometimes 80% of the time, and you're considered a star. It's like being a baseball player.
If you can get 7-1 in sales, you're not a star. You're a rainmaker.
Right, you're a rainmaker. So here's my thought process. So in sales, when I'm selling and I've sent a proposal, I've gone on an appointment, I've sent a proposal, and how does it typically play out, right? It plays out saying, okay, so we're going to talk next week to review the proposal, right? We find out the decision-making timeline. We find out who the decision makers are. We find out the decision-making criteria. And then we have a plan. And the call ends with a plan. And for those of you salespeople out there who are not ending with a plan, definitely give me a call. That's a different problem. But in any event, you end with a plan. And so then a week goes by. Hannah, you're my prospect. Supposed to talk to you next Thursday. Nope, don't email me back, right? Then, or if we have an appointment scheduled, they blow off the appointment, something comes up or whatever. And now a week goes by, and now 2 weeks go by. And now we're in a position of, now we have to become a nag because they've blown us off. And now we have to kind of start sending follow-up emails or thank you notes or some kind of voice messages. Geez, I know we were supposed to have
Wait. Please, there's young people listening. You're not becoming a nag. You're going to approach the person and explain that you are tenacious and pleasantly persistent.
I agree 100%. The perception, though, by the prospect is that you're being a nag, even though I agree with you 100%. Right. And so now I have to sit there. I'm already feeling self-conscious because I've been blown off, and I guess my sales pitch wasn't very good enough, or they didn't like me as a person. Now I have to feel self-conscious. Boy, am I being pushy? Am I being a nag? Should I call them? Should I not call them? And so now what we have is a situation where now not only were they the violator of ghosting me, but now I'm actually look like the bad guy because of their behavior. How bad is that? Right? So here's the point I'm trying to make. If you are in business, one of the things I train people on in sales is one of the first questions I have them ask during a sales presentation is, it's actually not it's a question and a statement. I'll say, look, before we get started, I wanted to let you know that I have a thick skin and I can take a no. I'd rather you tell me no or that you're not interested and feel comfortable to share that with me than me be strung along or you feel worried that I'm going to get upset. And I put it out there right in the beginning, Ted, because if they, at that moment, if I've just then given them permission to tell me no, then what better thing if you want people to communicate in a certain way, why not give them permission to do so?
Yeah, you got to ask them, though, if they know it's a no. You can't just give me a no to get me out of here because I'm a kind of a persistent person and I'll be pleasant and pesty unless you know it's a no.
Well, I think that's a great point, and I can't tell you how many sales leaders have said to me or salespeople have said to me over the years, "Are you out of your mind? Why you want to put the idea of them saying no out?" And I said, "I'll tell you why. Because we're in the business, we don't want maybes. We want yeses and we want nos. Maybes are devastating. So it's not like when you put it out there, they're like, oh, I didn't even realize I had that option. Yeah. Now that you've informed me, I'm going to be quicker to say no. It's so silly.
If you don't have thick skin, you don't belong in sales. And if you can't stand up and say, next, in the back of your mind and get to the next 100 calls, you shouldn't be in sales.
Now, Hannah, when we come back after our next break, I know in our first phone conversation, you had told me that you've had some sales experience. And you were misled even to a point. We're not going to use any names, but you were misled to a point. And I want to hear about why you think you were misled to think it wasn't a sales position when it was, and what your fears around sales as a young professional would be. So when we come back from the break, we will discuss that. This is Mark Altman with the MindsetGo radio show and my guest, Hannah Reuben. We'll be right back. Hannah and I were talking during the break, and one of the points she was making, and if I'm articulating this the wrong way, you correct me, Hannah, but is we're talking about, Hannah was saying, look, we're taught in college, there's an etiquette, right? And we're supposed to send thank you notes, and after we apply for jobs, there's steps we're supposed to do that we're taught to do the right way. And she said, employers should know that. Employers should know that they're supposed to do the same kinds of things. And the point I made to her is, this is not a knowledge thing. This is a fact of, it's like what you said before about it's either a hierarchy thing, it's I don't have time thing, or I shouldn't have to, or I don't care thing. And so, so many of the decisions we make are about our core values and how we want to treat people. And I'll make a quick analogy before we go back to Hannah's story, is I used to wait tables in college. And it was at a steak and seafood restaurant. It was a fairly nice restaurant. And I was always amazed at how people's behaviors changed when they came out to eat. It was almost like I became a slave. And I said to myself, I don't understand why, if you act a certain way, if it's a core value for you to act and behave a certain way, why, when you're in a different situation, do you throw those core values out the window and you're like, I'm going to act a certain way? So if I had every HR person that is receiving job applications, every company that's ever had to say no to a salesperson, everybody that's had online dating, I would bet, and I have no statistics, this is just intuition and insight, I would bet that at least 2/3 of those people would say that that's not how they want to treat people. And that's not who they are and how they treat people. Right. But for some reason, in those arenas, we throw caution to the wind and we're just going to act differently. And that I don't get that.
Can I qualify something
Sure.
about the follow-up letter? The follow-up letter, if you receive one, you better read it carefully, because the purpose of the follow-up letter is to restate and get confirmation of the commitments made at the meeting. So if when I send a follow-up letter, I'm closing the loop on them. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say, well, this is what we agreed to. This is what you agreed to do. This is what I agreed to do. I will be responding within 10 days, blah, blah, blah. If I receive a follow-up letter, I'm going to read it very carefully, because there may very well be some contractual requirement on my part. So if I go to apply for a job and I get the follow-up letter, that's a great indication that I left an impression with the interviewer. If I don't get anything back from them, I'm going to say in the back of my head, next, where's the next 100 opportunities?
Mm-hmm.
So Hannah, let's quickly digress for a minute. Let's pretend you're on a job interview and the job interview's ending.
Mm-hmm.
And let's pretend it's going well. You at least you think it's going well. How do you close a job interview? I'd like to hear kind of like what's your process, because when Ted starts talking about a follow-up letter, and I'll give you a lead-in so you're not coming out of thin air. So I said, all right, Hannah, thanks for coming in today. It was really nice getting to know you. How do you end it?
I always say thank you for your time.
Okay, I love that.
If I feel comfortable enough, I'll say, when am I going to be hearing from you next? And if not, then obviously thank you for your time. And then I always send a follow-up email saying, again, thank you for your time. Looking forward to hearing back from you. And I feel like it happens a lot where I don't get anything back, or, I email again within the next week and say, hey, how's the hiring process going? And then, they should hopefully answer by then.
Well, you're a very charming and polite person.
Thank you.
And I know you believe you're doing the right thing.
Okay.
But let me tell you what. You can't leave that interview with them expecting to get back to you. You have to tell them you're going to be getting back to them.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to want to discuss why you are qualified and the next person to be hired.
Yeah.
So Hannah, I think I'm going to build on what Ted said. I think that, and the simple way to say this, for all of you out there who have been in this role of closing out a job interview, there's 3 or 4 main things you want to do when you close out a job interview. One of the questions I always teach people to ask, and inside joke between Hannah and I, she'll have a chance to ask this before she knows it. One of the questions I teach kids or anybody to ask at any age is, is there anything you've heard today that would give you pause to hiring me? Okay, because before you leave that interview, that's your last chance to uncover any objections or concerns they have. Mm-hmm. So that's a question you always want to ask. Another thing you want to do is you want to stay in control of the timeline. So I would say something along the lines of, all right, so when should I expect to hear from you? And let's say the person says, well, we're still evaluating candidates, probably some point in the next couple of weeks, which I would then say, okay, so if I don't hear from you by next Friday, would it be okay if I follow up? Because you need to stay in control. Because it's almost what we were saying about ghosting. If you don't do that, if you don't stay in control and ask for permission to follow up, then you're going to be sitting there saying, well, are they going to think I'm a nag? And, maybe they're not ready. That's why you want to establish that permission to remove that anxiety or stress around that. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And the third thing you want to do that I think is really important is, what do you think my strongest attributes are for the job? And do you think I'm a good fit for the job? Come right out and ask. Mm-hmm. Am I the right person for this job? Am I a good fit for the job? Be assertive. Those are 3 things that you want to close out with. And so, one of my frustrations, Ted, I have to tell you this is, I have 2 kids that are out of college right now. And I remember when I used to visit career centers, when we used to go on college visits. And listen, I'm a pain. Like I'm the wrong person, because I'm always doing due diligence on everybody and everything. So I would sit with these career center people, and they want to start spouting off these career placement statistics, and we place X amount of our graduates and whatever. And I'm asking them, I'm like, you know what? There's 2 things I care about. One, how powerful is your alumni network, and how much are they going to do to help my son or daughter get a job? Second, I want to know, what do you teach these kids beyond the bare minimum standards of how to write a resume, how to dress for a job interview, how do you send a thank you note, all that garbage. And I'm not saying it's not important, right? You need to know those things. But at the end of the day, what I just taught Hannah right there and how to finish, how is that not at a career center at college? Where is the conversation intelligence to tell people, here's the exact conversation techniques you use to finish a job interview? And these are the things that just are not being taught. And we have dedicated resources at college level for an entire department about careers.
Gee, is that why they call it an academic environment?
Oh, it's so frustrating. So frustrating. And I've gone to colleges and I've said to them, I said, why don't you use me as a resource? Because I'm going to cover stuff that I guarantee you're not covering. And of course, then they'll say, oh, no, we cover networking. We cover interview skills. Of course, they're all going to say that. But then when you start asking and probing what they actually do, it's just bare minimum stuff.
Oh, we got a pamphlet for that.
Oh,
Yeah, but I've always said that throughout even high school and college that we should always have a type of class where you're learning about just life skills in general, whether it's like, how to buy a house, how to, do your finances, and obviously how to do interviews and land a job. I mean,
Here.
they have so many networking events throughout schools, but you don't have to go to them. And I always said that we should have a required course for those type of skills because it is important. You learn about your major, but how are you going to land a job if you don't know all those things?
so Hannah, I'll have to show you. I have actually designed, I'm making it seem like a bigger deal than it is, but I actually took about an hour, and it is on my bucket list to form a charter school.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea behind the charter school would be a totally different kind of curriculum than that's in schools. And I've actually mapped out all the programming for the school. I'll have to show it to you.
Mm-hmm.
But what I want to finish with, just to bring this whole concept we're talking about full circle. So, we're talking about a different approach Hannah could take to close the interview. But what I really want people to take away from it, beyond the strategy itself, is, when people feel like you're not going away, it's harder to ghost, right? Because if I walk out of that interview and I'm like, okay, look forward to hearing from you and all great, whatever. But if I'm calling you back, if I'm not checking you up, you're kind of making it hard for the other person. And so where they might have a tendency to ghost others, two things happen. You've kind of been assertive and set the tone and said, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And the other thing you've done, Hannah, which is incredibly important, which so many people struggle to do, is you've differentiated yourself from the other applicants and candidates. And that is something that so many people have a problem selling themselves. So that's why I think that would be an important approach to take.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to come back for our final segment. And when we come back for our final segment, we're going to get more into some other strategies and tips and how you can overcome ghosting and other techniques you can do to reduce some of that inner voice stuff that kind of wears you down when you are ghosted. So this is the Mark Altman for the Mindset Go radio show. We'll be back. Okay, welcome back to our final segment of the Mindset Go radio show. Wishing you all, if you're working or driving or wherever you are, I hope you're taking some time to breathe. And one of the time management techniques I often suggest to people over the course of the day, because we get so caught up in our to-do list and our emails and our meetings and so on and so forth, is I call it the 11 and 2 check-in. And the 11 and 2 check-in is basically you put a reminder in your phone or your computer where all it says at 11 and 2 is to look up, because you get so consumed with your work. And it's funny, anytime I think about how people prioritize themselves, best laid plans, you can start out a day with the idea that you're going to get this many things done. But once you get into reactive mode to responding to others in email, it's very easy to get distracted. So if you haven't looked up yet today, I'm encouraging you to look up to make sure you're getting everything done you want. With that said, let's go in. I remembered, did not finish the story about Hannah from the other segment about how as she's been looking for jobs, she has been misled a little bit. And Hannah, if you could just speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so, coming out of school, especially college, you're looking for jobs and you don't know exactly what you want to do or what the jobs are. So, you go on Glassdoor, Indeed, or LinkedIn or whatever, and, you just apply to every marketing thing, or that's what I would do. And, then you go to the interview and, I applied for maybe marketing assistant or account executive, something like that. And then you go and then, it seems a little bit too easy of the interview, and they're talking more about sales and have you ever done sales? And sometimes they don't even tell you it's sales until the second interview. So, you go and then by the second interview, they say, well, this is sales. You're going to be doing door to door. In the first interview, I'm thinking, oh, this seems like a good fit. It seems like a small little marketing firm. But then, you go back and, you waste your time again. Well, for me, and then you it's door to door, and you're getting commission, and your hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and it's kind of tricky. So I feel like a good tip to do is when you're applying for jobs, definitely research the company before you apply, even though it says marketing, and I also look at Glassdoor reviews as well. Working for a company, a lot of employees or older employees write how it was working at the company. So I definitely do that now, knowing that I've been on so many sales jobs interviews when it wasn't marketing when I thought it was.
So Hannah, it's interesting what you're talking about, because I have always been from the mindset, I am such a people person, and I love people. I love interacting with people. And I've always been from the mindset of that if I'm trying to sell something, I need to get in front of that person. Because once I'm in front of that person, I feel confident, not cocky or arrogant. I feel confident that they'll like me and they'll want to work with me. What you're describing is when you go on those interviews and you don't find that out until the second interview, they're basically saying that on the first interview, you're going to fall so much in love with them and the opportunity that regardless of what the job is, you're just going to work for the company.
Yeah.
But what I want to ask you is, it feels in this case, and maybe I'm stating the obvious, but it feels very inauthentic to me, because it's like they're baiting you into something. And then, so for a young professional like yourself going through the job market really for the first time, does it leave a bad taste in your mouth? And if not, how come? In a good way.
I think it definitely does. I feel like when you're writing job descriptions, when you're looking for employees, I think it's very important to write exactly what you're looking for and what the job entails. And if you're saying doing marketing campaigns and it's really door-to-door sales, I think it's important to say that, because there are some people who, don't have a college degree and would love to do door-to-door sales. So I think it's important that you write exactly what you're looking for, because everyone coming in to apply for jobs are doing the same. They're bringing in front of you your resume and exactly what you're doing. So I think it's important for companies to tell exactly what they're looking for.
And what's interesting to me is that by using that approach, what it comes down to is it seems so short-sighted to me, because number one, for every kid that you've brainwashed into after the first interview where you think you're going to convince them when they come back for the second, even if they take the job, there's a good chance they're probably not going to like it because it wasn't clear what the requirements were up front. So I just wonder the amount of time people waste by taking that approach for the rare upside of fooling someone, I guess.
Yeah, I've driven an hour and a half away for one of those things, and then you go back and then you drive another hour and a half, and it upsets me. It's like they're tricking me, and I don't think that's right.
So let's finish. I want to finish the show today talking about an expression that we've all heard and used, and the expression is "read between the lines." And read between the lines to me can mean a lot of things, but it's intended to be nonverbal communication, right? So when you're communicating with someone, you can ghost them, or you can hide behind a text, or you can hide behind an email. There's lots of different ways you can choose to communicate with people. But what we're ultimately doing when we ghost people is we're hoping they go away. Okay? And so my question is, for those of you out there who have been on either side of this, read between the lines. So when you're ghosted, is the message you're supposed to get that you suck? Like, I'm reading between the lines. You've ignored me. You've blown me off. So I must suck. Is that pretty obvious? Like, is that it? Is there any other way to interpret it?
No, I think you're spot on.
Right? And so I wonder, for those of you who are listening to the show who have been on this side, and I can tell you, I'm not going to say I've never ghosted anybody, but I will tell you I'm very mindful about it. And I will say that I'm sure I do it from time to time, but I think about it. And I would say this, where a lot of people might fall into the trap of doing it most of all the time, I would say I maybe do it a quarter of the time because I'm pretty mindful. But I think we all need to start taking a step back and really understanding how our actions impact others. I've talked on previous shows. I've said that if you're a coach on a sports team, and Hannah, I know, played sports in high school. If you're a coach on a sports team, you are impacting the lives and the confidence of that human being. If you are in a position of hierarchy of any kind, parent, leader, boss, prospect, employer, I don't care. Interviewer, you are going to affect the person's confidence. Your communication, verbal and nonverbal, with them could totally shape a different direction they take. And if anybody out there is thinking I'm overreacting or I'm making too much of this, you're wrong. Because you know people, you know your own inner voice. You know what we tell ourselves. My screensaver, Ted, I just got a new laptop. My screensaver, I intentionally did this. It says, I'm going to show it to you before I leave today. It says, the most convincing story is the one you tell yourself. That's my screensaver. And so that's what people think about and are doing every day. So if you're wondering if they're going to feel better if you ignore them as opposed to respond to them, they won't. Because their inner voice is going to start formulating why you didn't respond. So why don't you just tell them why you didn't respond? Either way, it's bad, right? Either way. So make it a little easier. If you don't think you have impact, if you don't think your lack of response has an impact, then think of how you have felt. It's how we started the show today. Do unto others as you'd have done to you. Think of how you felt when you've been on the reverse side. You know? So it's something that I think from a mindfulness perspective, we need to be self-aware of how it makes us feel if we're inclined to do it, what we can do as an alternative. And this truly brings everything full circle because remember Hannah said earlier in the show when I posed the question of online dating of, it could still be construed differently and sarcastic. That's exactly the problem. I bet there's a lot of people sitting here listening to this show today and who will listen to the show who will tell you, you know what, Mark? It's not that we don't think you're right. It's that we don't really know what to say or how to say it where we don't think it will be mean or hurtful or rude. I think there's a big audience of people out there that feel that way. And that's why from a conversation intelligence perspective, pick up the phone, give us a call. My phone number, my direct number for MindsetGo is 978-793-1159. Shoot me an email at info@mindsetgo.com. But if you really want to know if it's really an intention and a purpose for you to not ghost people and to not make them feel that way, then figure out what are the words, what are the actions that are going to be okay, that you can feel comfortable with and that the other person can feel comfortable with. So with that said, Hannah, so awesome having you on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
I hope you'll come back.
Yeah, hopefully.
Ted, should we bring her back?
I think we should.
I think so too.
I really think you bring out some different colors in this host.
Yeah.
Thank you. So do you.
How about that, Ted? What a compliment.
Thank you very much.
So thank you for joining us for another edition of the Mindset Go radio show. Again, if you want to look us up, mindsetgo.com. Please stay emotionally intelligent and have a great week. Talk to you soon.